Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're dissecting a deeply confusing and honestly pretty painful relationship dynamic. And we're going to do it using hard science. We're looking at the architecture of avoidance. Specifically, we're breaking down exactly why partners suddenly pull away, especially when things seem to be going incredibly well. All right, let's dive right into this. So picture one of those rare evenings where everything between you and your partner just flows perfectly. You know the ones. You're laughing, the conversation gets naturally deep, and the affection feels so wonderfully real. You probably go to sleep that night looking at them, thinking, this is it. This is how a relationship is supposed to feel. It's just this amazing, validating moment of pure connection. But then, usually the very next afternoon, it's like a switch completely flips. Out of nowhere, they're just emotionally gone. I mean, physically, they might be sitting right across from you on the couch, but there's this cool, really unsettling distance behind their eyes. You suddenly feel like you're talking to a brick wall. It's incredibly confusing, and man, it hurts. Your mind immediately starts racing, right? You're replaying every word you said, desperately looking for where you went wrong. But the psychology we're exploring today reveals a really powerful truth. This jarring shift is rarely about a lack of care. Part 1. The sudden disconnect. To really understand what's going on here, we have to look past the surface behaviors and figure out what is actually happening inside their body during these sudden withdrawals. Now, this is where it gets super interesting because science redefines the problem entirely. In psychology, this sudden retreat is tied to a biological state called emotional flooding. When a conversation gets a bit too intense or when the emotional stakes of closeness just feel too high, the body's internal alarm system literally trips. This isn't just your everyday stress. No, this is a measurable, biological survival response. Their nervous system is doing exactly what it learned to do, which is to protect instead of connect. Just to show you how intensely physical this is, check out this number, 100. When a partner is emotionally flooded, their heart rate spikes, often soaring way above 100 beats per minute. At the exact same time, their bloodstream is being totally swamped with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. Their body is literally bracing for a physical threat, even if they're just sitting quietly at the kitchen table. And when the body goes into this intense survival mode, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for language, empathy, and logic, it essentially just goes completely offline. It shuts down. So when you ask a flooded person to just talk to me, you are literally asking them to do something they biologically cannot do in that moment. It's exactly like asking someone with a broken leg to go run a marathon. The actual hardware required for a rational, empathetic conversation, it's simply unavailable. So if their body is reacting to a threat, what exactly is the threat? Let's move to part 2, the avoidant shield, to see how this builds on their psychological background. Well, for folks with an avoidant attachment style, closeness itself can actually feel like a threat. They might have grown up in environments where their emotional needs just weren't met, or where they had to be hyper-independent just to survive the day. So now, as adults, when intimacy exceeds their window of tolerance, their system automatically activates what psychologists call deactivating strategies. In the real world, this looks like nitpicking your behavior, purposely delaying text responses, or suddenly demanding a massive amount of space. The absolutely crucial point here is this: they aren't trying to be the villain. They're just desperately trying to return to a baseline sense of safety. And this brings us to a fascinating, but admittedly super frustrating reality for their partners. The triggers for this avoidance are entirely counterintuitive. You'd naturally think they pull away because they're bored, right? Or maybe losing interest. But research actually shows that avoidants often pull away precisely when they care the most. Why? Because caring deeply makes the potential risk of rejection or failure feel terrifyingly high. Underneath that stony silence, they're often dealing with a massive shame cascade. If they perceive even the tiniest criticism, it hits them like a devastating character attack. They completely freeze up and shut down to protect their pride and self-worth. Internally, they're often repeating phrases like, "I just can't do anything right," or "I'm not enough for you." To avoid feeling that crushing inadequacy, they pull back to regain some semblance of control. That internal shame and sudden withdrawal kicks off a really destructive interpersonal cycle. Welcome to part 3, the waltz of pain. Here's exactly how this dance plays out. First, one partner senses the distance. Out of anxiety and feeling completely abandoned, they push harder to connect. Second, to the avoidant partner who is already drowning in overwhelm, that pursuit feels like an attack. It feels like smothering. Third, to escape the smothering, the avoidant retreats even further away. And fourth, the whole cycle just repeats, spinning totally out of control. Basically, every single move you make to save the connection is actually triggering the other person's biological need to escape. Look, this is incredibly dangerous territory for a relationship. If you notice those physical signs of flooding in your partner, a tightened jaw, glazed over eyes, super rigid body language, you have to stop. Pushing through the argument right then is literally like pouring petrol on a fire. You absolutely cannot talk someone out of a flooded state. Trying to force it will only cause significantly more damage to your connection. Fortunately, relationship science actually gives us a highly practical way out of this mess. Let's look at part 4, the 20-minute solution. This strategy is backed by some serious psychology research, especially the work of Dr. John Gottman. The science shows us that once someone is emotionally flooded, it takes a minimum of 20 minutes for their nervous system to naturally clear out those stress hormones and return to baseline. 20 minutes. That is the biological minimum requirement for their brain to reset. So, here is the exact script you can use to take a regulated break. If you're the partner who tends to pull away, please don't just disappear into the other room. Instead, take a breath, soften your voice, and say exactly this. I'm feeling flooded and I need 20 minutes. I'm not leaving the conversation, I just need my brain to come back online so I can actually hear you. Stating this out loud transforms a confusing rupture into a moment of repair because your partner explicitly hears that you are not abandoning them. Now, on the flip side, if you're the partner on the receiving end, the rule for you is simple, but man, is it difficult. Honor the break. Letting them go for those 20 minutes is often the absolute hardest thing you can do when you're feeling anxious, but it is by far the most effective. Honoring that break teaches their avoidant nervous system that you respect their boundaries, and more importantly, it proves that it is actually safe to come back to you. Listen, if you take absolutely nothing else away from this explainer, let it be this core insight. Distance is a survival response, not a character flaw. When we stop viewing an avoidant partner's withdrawal as malicious or as a lack of love, and we start seeing it for what it is, a biological mechanism for safety, literally everything changes. Understanding this biology is the key to turning those protective walls back into open doors. Now that we've broken down the architecture behind all these behaviors, I want to leave you with something to really reflect on. Take a look at your own relationship history. Which side of the dance are you stuck in? Are you the one who gets overwhelmed and pulls away just to survive? Or are you the one who feels abandoned and chases after them to connect? Because identifying your role is the very first step to changing the choreography. Thanks so much for learning with me today, and as always, keep asking the big questions.